this podcast, my podcast is called The Filmmaker's Life. And what I'm always interested in is, how did the filmmaker, although we're going to get to Deborah's a little different here today, how did they build their career? Because the filmmakers who follow me are always interested in building their careers, in raising money, getting their films made, all that good stuff. And so this podcast is designed to show filmmakers how they can be successful as filmmakers. And so I am very excited if my Wi-Fi is going to keep working. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to switch my internet. I'm sorry. I'm going to switch to a different internet. Okay, I hope this one is better. I wanted to introduce you all to Deborah Henson Conant. She is an amazing, amazing artist, musician, composer, performer, all kinds of things. And you'll see, Deborah, the way that I do the interview, we start at the very beginning and we sort of build up kind of through your life. So we're going to learn about your whole life and your whole career as we go along. And we'll learn all about you in that process. So the first question that I always ask is, and this, I'm going to change it for you, but the first question I always ask is, when did you first know you were a filmmaker? But in your case, when did you first know you were a musician?
Actually, I'm going to change that slightly because while I am a musician, what I really am is someone who tells stories with music.
Woo! I love it. I love it. I love it.
And I know that filmmaking is also about telling stories. And it just so happens that my medium is both, is on the stage is where I feel most comfortable. But I have also made films that that allow the audience to get closer than the front row. So intimacy and bombast are the two, and I think that's probably true for filmmakers as well. Intimacy and impact are so important when we're telling stories. So when did I first know that I was telling? I mean, stories with music was my whole life. My parents were musicians. They didn't live together, but I mean, my mother was a opera singer, and my father was a politician, but I never lived with him, but he also sang. And all of my relatives sang to me. So music was a huge part of, it was really my first language was singing rather than speaking. But I began telling stories with music as I can remember doing it for the first time when I was a little tiny kid. I didn't start playing the harp until I was an adult, but as a kid, every one of my relatives had a piano. And for me, the piano and now the harp is a vehicle for telling stories. So I would always tell stories, then I would just make the sounds, like it's raining and tinkle, 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 and the girl goes down, I mean, I could do it here to just give you a sense of what it would sound like on the harp. It would be like, it's raining. It's raining. And then she finds something and goes into it and goes down, 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 down. And when she gets down and it's very dark, suddenly something jumps out at her and she jumps back up. And finally she's free and back again in the rain. So the story was really just exploring the capabilities of the toy that I had, which was that instrument, and telling a story with that. And then I wrote my first musical when I was
wait, before the mucus, I always have to go backwards a little bit.
Well, wait a minute. So I was 12 when I wrote my first musical. So
when you just played and told us that story, I was both filled with joy and it brought tears to my eyes. I don't know, it was just so beautiful. It just brought tears to my eyes. And
by the way, you could do the same thing. I mean, one of the things that fascinates me about instruments is that there's two things you can do with them. One is something that anyone could do, their innate capability, and then there's actually sort of mastering it. But yeah.
Right. I was just curious about this very musical family that you came from. Was it that everyone was so musical because that's a cultural thing? I had a client once who's Venezuelan and she sang traditional Venezuelan music, and it seemed as though everybody in the culture is musical. I don't know if that's really true, but that's what it seemed like. That's what I learned.
Well, I mean, I think in Venezuela, just like in my family, that was the method of entertainment. Like
Mm.
I never listened to recordings. I think we had like five
Mm.
recordings or something. That was not how I experienced music. It was
Right.
through people playing. But it's really interesting because I came from a mixed family in that they were Russian Jews and Swedish, many generations Americans. And my two grandmothers, Grandma Anna, who was the one from Russia, music was high art, and telling stories with music was high art, opera, high art.
Uh-huh.
For Edith, who would put me into the wheelbarrow and wheel me down to the garden and sing, she said, people gotta sing. People have to sing. They have to eat their peas. They have to go to the bathroom. They have to sing. People have to sing, and someone has to keep them together. That's why you play music. So for Anna, it was high art. For Edith, it was community service. That's what music was. And I
Mm.
grew up in those two.
Wow, what a wonderful mixture. What a wonderful blending.
Yeah. And it was deeply, deeply important to both of them. They both believed in music as an important force in the world, but in
Mm.
different ways.
Wow, that is wonderful, wonderful. And so you said you were 12 when you
Right.
wrote
Right. I mean,
this.
I'm sure I wrote other, songs and stuff like that before, but um I was 12 and I wrote my first musical. It was called When Knights Were Bold. And of course, Knights was spelled Night. It was about a knight and a dragon and a queen. And I still remember the songs. It had sarcasm and blah, 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 had everything. And I got to act in it. So, I was in the sixth grade, I guess, and I got to pick all the people for the parts. And then, but I remember the moment when I was being, look, I just saw my body just change when I said, when I was being the queen. And I remember talking to the second graders and being like, she was singing this sarcastic song about when you feel low and life is a bore, and when people shove you out of the door, well, then you must lie to keep yourself high. And what is a little lie? Like this was her song. And because that's how, anyway, that was the story that she lied about what the dragon did. The point is, that was my mode of that's how I would only think of doing things, would be through music and
Mm.
story.
It's just so wonderful to hear that. I just remembered another experience because you used the word community about Grandma Edith, was
Hmm.
it? And
Yep.
I studied sound healing. And the
Oh,
very first weekend we had was singing in the round, community singing with one of the musicians from, now I'm not going to remember the name. Anyway, but we sang these really old songs that came from Americans and slave tradition and so on. And it was such a healing experience about that's community singing. And when you said about intimacy and bombast, it seems that there's those two sides of your family, because I think of the community as intimacy. That sounds to me like intimacy, and then the opera as bombast, maybe.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, that's one of the. I mean, I like with film and with music. It's one of those incredible things that it's got this range where I can be on stage making something really, really big and then just bring it way down to
Mm.
something incredibly intimate. And to me, that is part of what's so beautiful. And I think I grew up hearing my mother sing opera and hearing her, put on a record. What the recording we did have was called Music Minus One. So it was an opera without the singer. And she'd say, this is, yeah, it was like karaoke, but
Aha.
opera. And she would tell the story. She I'm just realizing, becoming aware of how my body keeps shifting the minute I think of these things. She'd come in as herself, and then she'd tell the story. And as she told the story, she would be saying, and so over there is this, and here is this, and look up there. And then she'd put the music on, and you were transformed. I'm completely transformed. You could get to see a human being completely transform in front of you. To me, this is the most like amazing thing. And so I ended up being a performer myself, not because that's what I wanted to do, although that's a natural thing to do, but because I wanted to see other people play my work in that way. I wanted to see. A couple of years ago, I thought, oh, I see what I've done my whole life. I just wanted people to tell me stories with music. I wanted them to do what my mother done in
Uh,
with the impact that she
uh-huh,
had. And
uh-huh.
so I wrote all these things and be like, here, do this, play this, do this. And every once in a while, a performer will do that. And I'm just like, oh, thank you. Like, you gave me that experience. So that, and I will say there's a quote, if once you have heard the angels sing, no matter where or when, your heart will beat at the walls of your life, longing to hear it again. And that song is actually about three old people singing in a dusty church, and their voices are like, they're completely cracked like old linoleum, but their authenticity and the beauty of what they're singing is this beauty of the angels singing. And that's what I feel like. I heard this, I got to experience this as a child, the intimacy and expanse in the same, like, that's what's so amazing, in the same moment
Mm,
almost. And
mm,
it's just what I keep working at and working at. And in the musical that I did just recently do, I noticed that I would build these structures, like build, 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 and then right at the top, everything would go away. And there would be this moment of just almost silence where it's almost like you're getting closer to the people through
mm.
the intimacy and through the moving away of, I mean, like the orchestration, like you can be a big, 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 big because I write for orchestra, but the minute like the orchestra comes to the top and then you pull it away and there's the individual, it's just like, I don't, it's so exquisite. It's like, so anyway,
Was that song that you quoted one of your own compositions?
yes, yes, yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. I want to tell you my angels singing story. Uh,
Okay.
so many years ago, I was visiting some friends in York, England, and they had lived there so long, they forgot that they lived in York. And I was like, no, I'm going to go be a tourist. Bye. So I went over to York Minster, and it was the middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday or something. And I walked in, and I sat down, and there was a boys' choir singing. And there were these beautiful voices. And I'm sitting in this massive, massive, massive building. And I suddenly had the realization that I was sitting in the same seat that people had sat in for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and that building had been designed to lift those voices to heaven. That was
Wow.
what that structure was for. And the voices went upwards and took us up with them.
Wow. That is really interesting because it was only recently, all my life, I've wondered, why am I playing the harp? Why am I playing the harp? Because it had a lot of harmonic difficulties. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I liked percussion and bombast and stuff. But I recently realized that it was designed for, but I never thought of using those words until what you just said. But the harp, whether it was designed for, it just happened this way, designed to be the storytelling instrument. I
Mm,
wear this, I strap it on. So
mm,
and in certain plays that I've created, I've also created sets out of it. Like I've put it up 25 feet and built stuff around it so that it becomes not just the instrument, but also the partner, the set, it becomes a costume. It's all those things. It's an incredible instrument in that way. And because it's electric, this is an electric harp and it can be amplified like an electric guitar if you wanted to. It has an incredible range. So I realize now I chose without knowing the instrument that was designed to allow the performer to create spontaneously the experience of a story with music, fully expressed with music.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and to be able to move with it. And who would have thought? Who would have thought that the harp had that? And yet that's what it is. You know,
Well,
it doesn't take away your mouth.
right.
You can play and then move your hands and then you can actually walk away from it and it still sings. Sorry, carry
No,
on.
no, no. So you had mentioned, I think you didn't discover the harp until 21. So between 12 and 21, how did you pursue your music then?
So, I mean, I did have a couple lessons when I was a kid because I was clearly a musician because I couldn't get me away from the piano. But so they were like, well, let's give her piano lessons. And I was like, I remember the teacher gave me the music to play and I was like, hasn't anybody else played this music? And she was like, yes. And I was like, didn't they do a good job? And she was like, yes, they did a good job. And I was like, then why do you need me to do it? It's already done. Someone's taking care of that. So that didn't make sense to me. So then they were like, okay. My mother was one of the first students at the North Carolina School of the Performing Arts. So she had access to all these different musicians. So she was like, we'll give her guitar lessons. And I wasn't interested. And I'll give her this flute lessons. And then they were like, we'll give her harp lessons. So I had like 6 harp lessons as a kid. And I just didn't get it. I just didn't get the harp. But I thought it was a very interesting mechanical instrument. I mean, it really is. Anyway, then when I got to college, they had a harp, and I became the harpist. But what was I doing up until then? I was telling stories with music. I was writing a lot of music. I was writing song cycles. I was writing folk music. I was writing musicals. That one, and then I wrote another one called The Legend of L.K. Quick, and we produced that as well. And then when I was 19, I started writing. I had this moment when I was questioning my life. I was like, is my life going to be a life of freedom or security? What am I going to be searching for, freedom or security? And immediately this became a story. It became 2 characters. And they immediately were on 2 sides. There were bars between them, and they were on 2 sides of a cage. One was inside the cage, who couldn't get out. One was outside the cage, longing to get in. I didn't understand why or where or what. And they began singing this song. Here I am in my golden cage, so secure and so pure. And that became this lifelong story that I struggled to tell. So at that moment, I was sitting there at the piano writing this thing and realizing, oh, right, I did not take the piano lessons. I did not take I don't know how to write music out. I can invent it, but I don't know how to document it. And I think this might be interesting to filmmakers in the whole idea that a film is a document,
Right.
which is amazing because your art form actually is the documentation of your art, versus as a composer, the documentation is separate from the art form. And I think that's why I gravitated to becoming a performer. So the art form, so they were connected. So I always had difficulty. My disconnect was not knowing how to write the music down. So I went back to school, learned how to write it down, produced that musical for the first time. And I did learn how to write music, but it's very slow for me. But I think this might be interesting, you know, vis-a-vis what you said, you know, the filmmakers here are interested in, which is I finished that musical at 24. I finished it. I produced it. I produced it in a theater. I got great reviews, blah, blah, blah. And I did not know what to do next.
Right.
People were saying to me, oh, this musical is great. Do this, this, this. And I was like, why do I have to keep proving this thing? I mean, it's already like, just somebody take it, put it on Broadway or whatever. And I was even invited to a very prestigious musical theater sort of mastermind, which I went to, and it was the BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated. It was like their top-notch musical theater thing with the guy who invented it, Lehman Engel. And this was a really painful experience for me, and I'll explain it. And it has to do with documentation. When I went to the workshop, I performed part of the musical, and he was like, "That's amazing. Send me a tape." I did not know how to make a tape.
Uh,
And I went home, I did the best I could. And one of the things I didn't know what to do, because I didn't listen to recorded music,
right.
I didn't know how it worked. So I was like, well, if the first half comes to this, and maybe I should just turn it over and just have him start, not have him rewind, but go, So I put it together the best I could. And the message I got from him was this was far inferior to the work that I saw. And how dare you send something that was
Oh,
like, so at that
oh,
moment, yeah, that was it was pretty difficult. So I didn't know. I really didn't understand. And that has a positive impact and a negative impact. The negative impact was I didn't know how to take the work from complete to connected, connected to others, and off, and doing its work in the world. And I thought, I guess it wasn't good enough. And so I thought, I'll make another musical. So I made another musical. And maybe that wasn't good enough. So I ended up being incredibly prolific, writing many, many, many pieces, both for symphony orchestra, solo harp, many, many musicals, producing them, and then not knowing what to do at that moment.
That is such the moment that I see my people, my filmmakers stuck, where I met a man the other day who has spent the last 10 years writing scripts. Great. He's written 50 scripts. And so people have this sort of ability to be prolific, and I call it having creativity pouring out of their fingers, but it's not actually manifesting in the world in the way that they want it to. They're still alone at home with 50 scripts in the drawer.
Correct.
Or they're still alone. I know of a filmmaker who teaches at a top film school who's been pitching the same script for, I stopped counting after 25 years.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I really gravitated towards having an instrument in which I could be like, well, all right, I'll just be the musical. Here I am, here it is. And that's how I made my career as a performer. Now, when I said there's a negative side and a positive side, the positive side is I was prolific. I mean, I have been prolific for decades, and I have kept everything that I wrote. And 3 years ago, I took that musical, I completed it again, performed it in New York City, filmed it, because I saw it needs to have legs. Performing it in New York City is irrelevant. Whatever, 1,000 people see it, and that's done. I wanted it to have legs. I wanted it to be able for others to see it. So I filmed it, and now it is a film. And now I'm going to the next step of, talking to opera companies and theater companies about it. But my big thing right now is a project called the DHC Legacy Project. And it is the project in which I am taking everything that I created up to this point, completing it, publishing it, and I still discover myself still stuck at the marketing point.
Well, let's go back to the golden cage, because the way you just told it, as if it was just perfectly natural that you had written this a long time ago and then you made it. That is not how it was when you and I worked together. It was not this sort of like, oh, and I'm going to do this, and this is what I do. And I feel as though when you were just talking about prolific, or I was talking about the guy with the 50 scripts or so on, I almost always see everything the same. The first question for me is, so what's the budget? And then how are we going to raise it? And the funny thing is, is that it turns the prolific, I
Right.
think of it as the ocean of creativity. It
Yeah.
sort of turns it into a project that has a
Correct.
beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's based in what's the budget. And then the second thing, because I've sort of been saying this recently, you know what, I'm only going to talk about two things now. I'm going to talk about budget.
Wait. I missed the second thing you said. You're going to talk about budget and what?
Date,
Date.
deadline, right?
Date. Okay.
We're going to decide what the budget is, and we're going to decide, in this case,
Right.
when it's going to be performed. I think you actually already knew that when we started working together.
That's right. And I had it, and I knew the trajectory. I knew that I wanted to film it with piano, and I wanted to take it into post-production as a film and add orchestral enhancement so that we would have on film something that had a similar impact to live. But I hear that happening with sound in a film. And so it took we did it live, and we did everything. I mean, we did all of that, and we did raise money to do that. And now we have that film. And now this is another stuck point. Now comes the point of, okay, now you have it. It's a beautiful thing. People are moved by it. But who goes and watches a musical? I don't know. I mean, now what? How do you then monetize that so that you can keep going and keep going and keep going?
Yes, and so I think why I was inspired to have you come on and talk to us was that in many ways, all artists, if they get to go to film school, or if they get to go to study music or study composition or whatever, they study the craft, but they're not being taught how to build a career, or, to use an even less artistic word, how to monetize their work.
Yeah, and I just want to say something about monetization, because every dollar that you make means a person has been impacted by it. So I see the money in a very different way now, and I really see it as almost like a selfishness on my part, that if I'm not out there making sure that there is an exchange with this thing, I'm not actually supporting my own work. And if I do want to say something for anybody who's like working with you. What we did is we set up a Fractured Atlas fiscal sponsorship when we first started, so that I could get fundraising for this musical, to complete the musical and make the film. And then there was more things that I had to pay for afterwards, like the orchestration and stuff like that. And even after the film orchestration, there was also more orchestration so that the piece could be performed live. And I was able to fundraise through the fiscal sponsorship. But just recently, like literally earlier this week, I went back to them and said, I now want to expand this fundraising, no longer just for this one piece, but that piece has been successful. I've completed it. Now I want to expand the fundraising to all of the compositions. And there's a huge catalog of all of them. And now I have a team that's doing that. And we haven't been able to switch over so that people can fund the full project yet, but that's what we're doing. So it's really interesting to go from a single project to realize this was a larger legacy, and it was a larger. And what was really interesting to me is when I went to them about that, they were like, oh yeah, you want an expansion application. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, this is the normal. This is it. This is how it happens. You do a thing and then it expands into the thing.
Many things.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. And I almost heard in what you were saying about the whole DHC project, is that now you know, oh, this is the project, this is the budget, and this is the money that we're going to raise.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't really have that's one thing I have not done yet, is figure out what the budget is for, because it's like a lifetime project. It's
Yes.
7 to 30 years of my life.
Right. right, right. But once, once you have a number, then you can raise that money.
Interesting.
Whether it's $100,000, $1 million, $10 million. Once you know that number, then you can say, now this is what I need, and where am I going to get that from? That's how I sort of translate it into the material world.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've also become aware lately that in as much as I'm not getting that fundraising or that hasn't started, the people who are working with me are the ones who are not getting paid or not getting paid as much as I'd like to, or they're not doing as much work as they could if I had more to pay them.
right. And when you just said about being selfish, the first thing that came into my mind was, and I'm going to ask you to tell this story because I don't remember the whole thing, but that there was a story you told about one of your pieces being played in the Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is really interesting because there's a one piece of mine that it's a bombastic harp piece, and it allows you to be expressive and kind of pretend that you're a flamenco um, band. And so a lot of harpists play it with symphony orchestra. But recently, a Ukrainian artist came to me and she said, I want to adapt this for the bandura, which is the Ukrainian national instrument, for a folkloric orchestra. So it's slightly different than your orchestra. And for me, this is my way to say, to stand up for my culture, and to this is my way to stand up and say, no, we are a culture and we do exist and this is us. And so she did do that. But what happened is she didn't have the money to pay for the license fee. And that same week, three other people, one from France, one from the UK, three other people wrote about this piece and said, we want to play it, but we don't have the money. And I was just like, wow, the money is what lets me then go and make more pieces. And at that moment, I thought, this is crazy. And at that moment, I made something called the Legacy Bridge, where I decided if she can't pay, maybe someone else can pay for her. That makes the connection between them. And then she can perform the thing. I get the license fee that I should have for this piece, and my work can keep going. So I put it in my website and I put it out on an email. And almost immediately I got several emails back. And one was like, I want the Ukrainian project. I have been wanting to be able to support an individual in some way that was important in that country. You just gave me that opportunity to do that. And so he paid for her, and now they have a relationship,
Wow.
that in which he may offer more things for her to be able to then go on and express more. And now she's playing more pieces of mine. And we are just about to put out a blog about that. But first, I have to get the funding information in place so that people can then fund more. So it's one of those things like,
Yes.
yeah.
Wonderful. But I love that story so much. And it's like, now I am all for artists being selfish and getting paid. I think of selfish as being a very positive word in the sense of artists getting paid. And a lot of funders, at one time I happened to be sitting next to the person who heads up the arts for the Knight Foundation, which is one of the big 10 foundations, and the person who headed up film at it's called Just Film at the Ford Foundation, and they fund millions of dollars every year for filmmakers. And I happened to be sitting next to them at this event, and something came up about some filmmakers shared something about, not getting paid. And these two ladies started whispering. They're like, oh, we don't like that. I said, please share that. Please tell people that. And so they raised their hands, because I was like, it's not going to be as powerful if it comes from me as if it comes from you. And they said, we do not want to see applications where artists are not getting paid.
I'm here. I hear what you say, Joanne, and I agree with that. And I want to say I see selfishness in a large, I mean, I see it in a larger, I feel like I am selfish when, and maybe this is exactly what you're saying. I am being selfish when I give in to my fear to ask
Ah,
for money. rather than being willing to do whatever I have to do to get that money so that the
Yes.
project can be made and the people who are in that project can be paid.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. And yeah, and that was the other thing when you use the word selfish. I immediately saw, because I remember the story about Ukraine, I immediately saw people all over the world getting paid.
Yeah,
Paid for
right.
being a performer or being a singer, or being,
And also having the vehicles. I mean, I create vehicles for people to be able to be self-expressed, and that
yes.
money allows that to open up. And it has so much greater impact. And same thing with a film. The money that goes into a film allows it to have impact and allows the ideas to be out there and allows, I mean, we all know that. I'm speaking to the choir here. That's not, but
Not necessarily, not
okay.
necessarily, because I feel as though you know something, I know something, and I feel a lot of filmmakers are not yet at that place. They have not equated, getting money, getting paid, raising money, me getting paid is all the same as getting my film made.
Yeah, it's
All
funny
the
because
same things.
as you were speaking, I was thinking, I'm not a religious person, but I do know that the older I get, the more I get that you've been given this thing. You've been given this idea, you've been given this whatever it is. Are you gonna let it come out of you or not? Are you
Mhm.
gonna support it? Are you going to get beyond your personal egotistical fears of
Mhm.
asking for money or whatever it is and actually take responsibility for the fact that this is the idea and the gift that you've been given or not?
That's exactly right. And I think that most filmmakers think that they're filmmakers because they have a script in the drawer. Not, I'm a filmmaker because I put this together, I raised this money, and I went and I made my movie, and now it's being delivered to wherever it needs to be delivered.
Well, let me
It,
ask you this,
that's a
Joanne.
filmmaker.
When does it stop? So really, I mean, like, so I raised the money to complete this thing, and people saw, I don't know how many, 2,000 to 5,000, I don't know how many, but it is nowhere near reaching its potential audience. And I could spend my whole life just marketing this thing that I already made. Now, I don't, mm,
Or you could raise some money and hire some people to market it for you.
right,
And then it wouldn't be everything that you were supposed to be doing with your time. But
right.
again, I hate to be so mercenary about money, but to me, there's a marketing budget, and if I had this marketing budget, then I could do X, Y, and Z in terms of marketing, and how much is that budget? Like right now, I ask all my clients who are making even micro budget films to also raise $24,000 a year for marketing. And the reason I landed on that number is because I met this guy at my spiritual home actually, and we sat down and had lunch, and he said, well, what do you do? And I told him, and he said, oh, I'm a film producer. I was like, really? And he's an investor in a marketing company, and they do targeted marketing. And so far, targeted marketing is something that costs, $50,000 a month or something. It's like way, way out of league of most people. And they've figured out a way to do it cheaply, and they really want to work with filmmakers. So they would charge $2,000 a month, 1,000 for the artwork and 1,000 for the paid marketing. And I figure 12 months is long enough to give it a shot. Is this going to build? Do we by month 3 realize we're making more money? Now we can spend more money on marketing, right? Or do
Yeah.
we give it a shot, and after 12 months we say, you know what, that was enough to spend. That was
Mm.
right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that you've given it a number. I was also thinking when you were speaking, the word conduit came to my mind as you were saying, get the money for this. And as I was seeing that, I was like, I was seeing people. You were saying marketing, blah, 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 blah. And I was saying marketing person, but da, 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 da. This
Yeah.
means you're part of the economy.
Yes.
You're enriching the economy that you want to enrich. And
Yeah.
so you're making a difference in that way. So yeah, I see that as being a conduit. So thank you. I like that. And I want to know more about this target.
Yes, we can
I'm
definitely.
also seeing questions or something.
We've just been posting cool stuff.
Oh, got it,
Let's
got it,
see
got it.
if we have any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Jean, Mark, David? Unmute yourself, and I think Mark's trying to unmute. There you go. Fabulous.
Yeah, Deborah and Joanne, thank you so much, Deborah. Do you mind repeating the little thing about did you write the verse, the song when once you've heard angels sing? Can you do you mind? I gotta tell you, I was like Joanne. I mean, will you say that again? Because I'm going to type it down. And if I ever have a chance to quote it and attribute it, tell me if it's in a song.
Yeah, it's in a song. It's in a song. I can sing a little bit. I can sing a little bit of the song if it's okay, Joanne.
Yes, please.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I don't know. I might have to jump around.
Just say the words real.
Yeah, the words. If once you've heard the angels sing, no matter where or when, your heart will beat at the walls of your life, longing to hear it again.
That is beautiful.
And the song is about a Unitarian choir. And it's about a Unitarian. I didn't go to church as a kid, but when we moved to North Carolina, my family went to a Unitarian fellowship. And you know, I came from this family of singers. And there was one moment when the person who was leading said, "And now let's have the choir sing." And these three voices, I had never heard anything like that. They were completely out of tune. And my mother was just like, "What's that about?" And I was like, "Oh my God, these are people who are singing to sing, not to sound good, but to sing." And it completely changed my life. Their voices.
It comes through, Deborah. And that's just, I just love word ideas. Put into words. Now, there's so many ways, but I like words because that's probably why I knew I was a writer very early on. But to me, what's beautiful is when you take such a beautiful idea and put it that just everybody hears it and it hits them, and those words just they bring such an emotional truth that people just get it. I mean, I did anyway. It struck me. So thank you. What's the name of the song that you put it in?
The song is called the Unitarian Choir.
Huh.
I don't even know if I've ever recorded it. It was from a musical called "What the Hell Are You Doing in the Waiting Room for Heaven?" About, anyway, it doesn't matter what it's about.
Yeah,
but yeah, and it's about like the choruses. If I said the sound was beautiful, you would say it was a low down lie. But it's stuck in my heart, and I always wanted to be a part of those three old souls singing in the dusty morning sun. 'Cause when they sang, it felt like heaven. The Unitarian choir. Well, they say that if once you've heard the angels sing, no matter where or when, your heart will beat at the walls of your life, longing to hear it again. And those three old souls kept singing like they thought they really could. They didn't know that they weren't any good. If I said the sound was beautiful. So that's, beauty for me.
Well,
That's beautiful.
go ahead, Innocent. Tell us how you're feeling because I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, um,
Thank
I'm
you.
speechless, really. I feel as though this is something that should never end. Whatever you're building, this is something that should never end.
Thank you. Yeah.
Something that should transcend from generation to generation. I don't care how you want to do it. I don't care what you have to do it. This is a legacy that has to be preserved. I'm just so blown away right now, and
I'm just thinking of what an incredible gift. What an incredible gift to be here
Well,
today, to hear
You,
that.
you know, Deborah, it just struck me. I went out very early this morning because it's very hot here. So for me to get outside and get some sun and connect, I have a little spot out by my lake, which is 8 miles away. And I go out there and I hear the birds sing. To me, birds, the music, and there was a little flock of Canadian geese walking along, just squawking, and I'm going, "Wow, that's the most pretty sound I'll hear today." And what do you know? It was outdone by music.
Oh, wow. I outdid
Yeah.
geese. That's amazing.
That's
Well,
right.
to me, it's rare that to me, it's rare that when humans actually outdo the beauty of nature.
Well,
But
actually,
now
thank
and
you.
then it happens. So.
And thank you. What it says to me is that this really is a natural thing for me to say. That's what I'm hearing in what you're saying, that, you know, the voice of, anyway,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Yeah.
I
And
think Jean maybe had a question.
okay, yeah, and I also wanted to thank, is it Innocent or Innocent?
Innocent
Just
Yes.
Innocent. Is
name.
that,
He just has the best name.
yeah, I just thank
How
you.
did I get the name Butcher and he got the name Innocent?
Well, let's get
That's really
together.
my question. You know, it's just okay. Jean, go ahead with your question.
I don't, it's not a question, it's
Okay.
statement. Yeah. Let me just say how beautiful it was. I grew up, I'm an actor. I grew up saying words that other people wrote down on paper and tried to make them make sense. My favorite playwrights and writers, David Mamet and Lonergan, their words to me are like music to you.
Mm,
So I read the words and get blown away. How did you write such poetry? And then it allow me to say that, you know, those words. So I understand you completely and totally. Now and then I decided to write my own words.
and
Joanne,
Oh,
do you mind if I ask Jean a
hold on.
question?
No.
Jean, you're an actor. Did you play on Texas Ranger? Do you have a little IMDb page?
I did play on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Well, I checked. I thought maybe you did. I checked IMDb, and that's great, man.
I
Awesome.
I cheated. My agent at the time, her husband was the cinematographer for Walker. And I would call him and go, "Where y'all shooting today?" And he would tell me, and I'd go down there. The first couple of years, I would go down there and go, "Do you need me? I can stand over there. I could say a line." And after a while, they go, "Okay, here comes that Gene guy again." And
I also
Jean,
just
I'm
want
just
to see if
curious.
David had a question. David, did you have a question? I saw
Actually,
you.
it's more of a comment.
Okay.
Deborah, I'm just curious whether you've ever thought of connecting with organizations that help out. Like, for instance, the one international chef who goes to places that have had something catastrophic going on, whether it's war, whether it's, and I'm just wondering, as far as if you were to just connect and say, guess what? I can make a piece for you to help push what you're doing. It also gets your music out there to hear, you know, whether they're playing it when they're feeding people and all that, so that you're both helping one another out, because you were talking before about not getting enough exposure to people hearing your music. And that was something I was kind of had in mind, especially when you were talking about, as far as the Ukrainians and all that. That may be a way to help, expand that.
Thank you. I mean, what I'm hearing you talk about is collaboration in various ways. Yeah, thank you.
Innocent had something else he wanted to add.
Okay. So I found this really, really important to what you did when you were starting out your career and what we have been trying to do, or what Joanne have been trying for years to make filmmakers see. You made something, you said a line that was very, very important. You said at 12 you wrote your first song, right? Yep. Now you made a statement that you had the right to pick the people who were going to act there. You acted there. You were the queen. You decided who acted. Now this is something Joanne has been trying for years to make filmmakers see. If you are your own producer, if you are raising your money to produce your own film, you decide who acts. You decide who's the boss. You decide who produces. You decide how the film should go. You have total control over your own product, right? That was so mind-blowing, and I wish every filmmaker could hear that, because if you realized that early enough in your career, you were able to see that early enough, there was actually nothing stopping you.
Correct. That's right. There was nothing stopping me. It's really funny that you should say that, because I chose people for all the wrong reasons, by the way, when I was 12. I chose the little girl that I wanted to be friends with to be the dragon, and she was a terrible, terrible actress. But anyway, you're right. And oh boy, this is such a huge thing for me, because on the one hand, I only knew how to do things myself. But it allowed me to just like be very pivotal and move and do what I had to do, and really build an international career as a performer, performing my own work. But what I didn't learn how to do was collaborate. And it was interesting when you were taught what you just said, because 3 years ago when I produced The Golden Cage, finally, I realized, wait a minute, Deborah, you've done it like this your whole life. And the first thing I did was to find a key person who I trusted, who could actually make better decisions than I could. But I agree that being able to do it yourself so that you're not stopped it's great to have both of those skills.
Yeah. Thank you, Innocent. That was really,
yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Great. You used the word control, total control. And I like to say, that if you're sitting on the therapist's couch in your therapy appointment, probably having total control is not what the goal is. But when you are producing your own show and raising the money to produce your own show, having total control that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. I also it's because it's kind of related. I want to go back. Was it George who I think he's left, but he said, I cheated in order to get, and as he was talking, I was like, how do you get that that's cheating? You were being innovative.
Yeah.
You were being ever present. You were being available, like super available. And I actually took a lot of inspiration from what he said just now.
Yes. No, absolutely. I agree. Well, Deborah, I was so inspired to have you on today, and this has just been one of the absolute best editions of the podcast. And it's just, to me, threading this needle about being an artist and also the money, also career, also the building the legacy, as Innocent was just talking about, just all of that together. That's what makes art work, you know, rather than I'm sitting in my place by myself doing my art. I'm out here
Right.
employing people. People are getting paid. People are being impacted as audience members, as musicians, as all in all kinds of ways, you know, and you just do such a fantastic job of that.
Wow. I mean, I really thank you for saying that, because as you were saying it, I kind of realized it. I was feeling like, right, like a bubbling thing that's coming up from the earth. And I just want to say that people can see the Legacy Project. I'm still building the webpage and everything, but at my website, which is hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument, hipharp.com. And then there's and then /legacy. Is that what it is? Oh no, sorry, it says something else now. But if you go to the website and look for Legacy on the front page, you'll see it'll link you to the Legacy page, which I think is called Innovator right now or something. It doesn't matter. You'll find it.
Yes, I think we might have already put it in the chat, but
Okay.
I'll make sure that it goes
Yeah,
in.
it's taken a long time for me to be able to actually acknowledge my own legacy. And I wish that I had done that sooner. And I really feel that it was just sort of an act of ego waiting for to be recognized rather than taking responsibility. And now I feel like I can take responsibility for what I've been given.
It's fantastic. It's so funny to be talking about these things that people don't usually think about. They usually just think about, well, I've got to write my script. I've got to write my script. But legacy is, I was saying to one of my clients the other day, I said, so when you die, who's going to be receiving the income from this film?
Right.
He
Yeah, I
was
was thinking about that. Yeah.
shocked.
I think about that all the time because I think about my team and I think about how, you know, how can I set it up so that they can continue to receive money even after I'm gone. And you know, as I was just thinking, as you were speaking, I was thinking, well, what's the definition of done? And I would say each piece is not done until it can be done without you.
Oh, yes. That's great. That's great. Well, I'm going to bring us to a close. Deborah, this was just divine. Absolutely divine.
And for me too, thank you so much for everything you said. I got so much out of this. It was like the perfect things for people to say at the perfect time and the perfect questions at the perfect time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you, Innocent. Thanks, Mark, David.
Thank
Bye,
you, both of you.
everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.